tonight's focus is loving self-talk. And just like last week, in order to fully understand what loving self-talk is and what loving self-talk isn't, we're going into what each of them look like, what loving self-talk would look like, and what lack self-talk looks like. Now, the lack self-talk one is particularly interesting. That's what we're going to start with. Because lack self-talk, as we're defining it here tonight, often masquerades in our thinking. We let it masquerade in our thinking. We've rationalized it as learning, self-reflection, or progression. This is the way we're defining lack self-talk tonight. Our tendency is to look for what is wrong to make it better. And this is often how we have mistakenly identified learning or self-reflection or progression, is looking for what's wrong in order to make it better. And so it's a very noble thing to do. I mean, it has good intentions behind it, but the result of it is everywhere we look, we now have developed the inclination for looking for what's wrong. We do it to our partner. We do it to our boss. We do it to our coworkers. We do it to our friends. And we do it to ourselves. Constantly holding in mind the poise of what's wrong here to make it better. What's wrong with me here? And the result of that can be conflict at times. And if that conflict doesn't manifest as conflict outwardly, then it certainly can manifest as conflict inwardly. So, the conflict inwardly is the looking for what's wrong to make it better. We experience that in our minds as, say, we had an experience earlier where maybe it was totally fine and normal, or maybe it was a little bit confrontational with someone. Maybe it was a little bit of a misunderstanding. Well, what we do in the name of learning, self-reflection, or progression is we play that scenario over and over in our mind, looking for what's wrong in order to make it better. So we're moving throughout our day now, carrying that situation with us, replaying it again and again, looking for what's wrong in order to make it better, in order to make ourselves better. It seems like a very noble endeavor, but the problem is we think that if we could just find all the people and all the situations and all the parts of ourselves that was lacking and make it better, then finally we'd come to this plateau where everything was perfect, where everything was good, where everything was better. However, that's a misunderstanding. That's not what actually happens. Whatever you think is what you continue to get. So if we build up the momentum in our mind of looking for what's wrong to make it better, then we're only constantly going to get evidence of what's wrong so we can make it better. So this is our normal tendency. We move through life trying to make things better. Of course, we want to make them better so that way things will be good someday. So we'll be good someday. But alas, that's not how it works. In order for things to be good and not lacking, we need to start loving it now. Instead of looking for what's wrong to make it better, let's look for the value in it and love it. So that's a description of what we do in our self-talk. That is lack. Now, let's go into a description of what we can do in our self-talk that is love. So what is this loving self-talk? What would that look like? We just went over what lack self-talk looks like. We're all very familiar with that. So loving self-talk may look like seeing the value in your goals, seeing the value in your values, seeing the value in the things that you do and the things that you say, your direction in life. The way that you express. It's actually taking a moment to talk to yourself and say, hey, I love you for these reasons. These things that you do, I see the value in them. I see you. I get what you're doing. These other people, they may not get it, but I do. I see it. Seeing the value in ourselves, loving ourselves. So, in an experience, a real world experience of seeing the value in ourselves and loving ourselves, it may look like, say, after you just had kind of that altercation, little bit thing that we just talked about earlier. Afterwards, that's what you said to yourself. Instead of replaying what was lacking in order to make it better, in order to change yourself and evolve yourself in the name of self-reflection and learning and progression, instead of that whole thing, we just simply saw the value in why you said what you did, actually seen it. That's usually the difficult thing, and why a conflict even happens, is because you're not seeing your own value and you're trying to force your value, what you see, on another. And usually they're in lack too. They do that to themselves all day long, looking for what's wrong to make it better. And so they don't even see they haven't taken a moment to even see their own value. So they try to force you to see their value by forcing what they think about the situation upon you. And you do it back. Because you also haven't taken the time to see the value. And so you're trying to make other people see your value. And then it can get really big. And we've all had that experience. But when we take a moment to actually see our value, all throughout the day, even constantly, every step while you're walking across the room, oh, I appreciate the way you've learned to walk. I appreciate your walk through life. I understand, I've been there. Literally, I've been there with you. I understand why you've come to walk the way you do. I see you. And the more we do that throughout the day, then when we get into these weird situations that might be conflict, then because we have seen ourselves, we're not desperate for someone to see us. And so if they say things to us that are contrary, if they say lack things to us, if they see ways that we could be better and we're kind of mean about it, then we're no longer bothered by that, because we see the value in those things that they're seeing as bad. We don't need to convince them that we are a value, because we see it for ourselves. And then at that point, you can really love someone and see the value in who they are, even in the way that they're expressing. And even help them to see their own value. But that only happens by seeing your value first. by loving yourself all throughout the day. Whatever comes up, just see what the heck was the value in it. There was an intent. See it. Don't try to convince other people of it. We don't need to convince other people of it. It's not even possible to convince other people of it. It's usually not possible for other people to even see it, to truly see it. Most people are too busy looking for how things are wrong to make it better than to even see the value in something anyways, and even to see the value in you anyways. So, as we see the value, as we express the appreciation, the love for the ways that we express, for the things that we do, for our direction in life, for who we are, then we can love others far greater than we ever could before, because we can love ourselves. Now, when a problem arises, it's not even so much about how do we solve the problem, but it's about more love that needs to be given. And so when we learn to give more love to ourselves all the time, more value, see the value, then we can learn to give more love to others, see the value in others. And when we can do that, then all of a sudden, when a problem arises, it's not so much of a problem even anymore. Problems don't even tend to exist when you're building new momentum towards seeing the value in things, new momentum towards love consciousness. Problems totally exist whenever you're still focused on what's wrong here to make things better. And that's where problems live. That's where problems exist. Problems tend to not even manifest. They tend to not even come about when our focus is on love, when our focus is on the value of things. Our mind keeps drawing more evidence of things being valuable instead of things being a problem. So this is love versus lack. Whatever our mind's inclination is, and we can build a new inclination. And that will be the information it retrieves to us. And so if we build the new inclination of taking a moment to recognize the value in everything you do as you move through the day, just new self-talk, then this becomes the evidence that's brought to you. Automatically even. Your mind will just start to do it. It'll just start to, I see that, that's good. Whereas before it's, I see that, that was bad. Shoot. What am I gonna do to make this better? Goodness, this person driving me crazy. Goodness, me, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. So building that new momentum. Building a new momentum towards love instead of lack. It's so interesting too, because we think that when we make a change with lack consciousness, when we actually fulfill the learning, self-reflection, or progression desire that we have, we think that when we actually make that change, that it'll be permanent. But the thing about lack consciousness is because it wasn't made in love, it's much less likely to be permanent. If it was made in lack, then of course it's still lacking. It doesn't feel good. Change is made in love, through understanding, through seeing the value in the situation, in someone else. That someone else, yourself, is much more apt to be a permanent change. There's an interesting thing about authenticity when it comes to this. Because what we're talking about here is practicing being more loving, practicing recognizing the value in yourself is really where it starts, and that automatically reflects out to others. How you treat yourself, if you're always looking for how you did wrong in order to make it better, then that's going to be the way you look at others. So if we build the new momentum of seeing the value of yourself in each moment, then that's going to be the way that you interact with others. And so this can seem inauthentic at first. It's like, I'm saying I love you to myself, but it doesn't really quite feel right. That's because of how reinforced that old momentum is of lack. Seeing the value in yourself is so foreign, it feels inauthentic. Saying valuable things that you see that you did or thought or said is so foreign that it'll feel inauthentic at first. And it will seem like this doesn't work. This is silly. But then after you do it just a little bit, and you start to see how invincible you become to others' lack, and others aiming their lack at you, aiming their meanness at you, aiming their pain at you, you'll start to see how invincible you become and how much you can love them because of that invincibility. Because you see the value in yourself. What they're doing with lack towards you, now that is what's inauthentic. So keep practicing. Keep recognizing the value in each moment of what you're doing, the way you're expressing, the things that you said after an experience, after a situation. Keep reinforcing the value. That is love. Now there's one more component to this before we meditate. And that other component that can help greatly with the authenticity part of this is to help greatly with yourself actually receiving these comments that you're saying, with yourself actually hearing them, actually them entering into your being, is learning how to actually say it to ourselves. Learning how to actually say it to ourselves. Here's an example. Say there's someone right in front of you who you're wanting to say I love you to, but you turn your head and say, I love you. Well, the odds are they probably didn't feel that because you really wasn't giving them your whole attention. You really wasn't looking at them. And so we're going to practice here, right now in this moment. We can even practice. What does that mean to actually look at myself? And I don't mean on the webinar here, and I don't mean in a mirror. I mean, no matter where we are throughout the day, what does that mean to actually look at myself? To actually place attention on myself, as if I were to do so when placing my attention on someone in front of me who I'm telling them, I love you. So actually place your attention on yourself for a moment. Feel what your body feels like. Know that when you're feeling your body, you are saying it to yourself. Hey, that stuff that you did the other day, these things that you said, they didn't get it. You know, they were in some pain. And I know that you may normally have went into judgment of yourself through that experience, but because we're doing these I love yous, because we're seeing the value in ourselves, seeing the value in why we said the things that we said, we're not going into that high state of criticism. We're not going into that lack. And man, I value that. I value you for that. Good job. I love you.